often became worse than that. If we look at, say, what happened at Kent State in 1970, where the Ohio National Guard shot to death protesters, unarmed protesters.
That's horrible.
That continues for me to be one of the most shameful moments in United States history. I can say that because I'm now a citizen. But I didn't mention any politics in the first book. And if I mentioned Vietnam at all, it might have been 2 or 3 times. It's been a while since I've looked at the book, but Vietnam was not, it was sort of taken for granted. And readers in 1972 knew what I was writing about and the polarity of the country. And particularly, I was very pleased that the police officer, and this is not in the movie, I like the movie, but there's always changes. In the movie, did not emphasize that the police chief had been in Korea, that he had been at the Chosin Reservoir Retreat, which is the biggest event for many military people in the Korean War. So the police chief thought he understood combat, he thought he understood military and wars. That was a conventional war. And now he's up against guerrilla war, which is so far different. So that the contrasts that I was playing with were quite exciting and stimulating, and people reading the novel are always surprised by the police chief's background and what we learn about him, which we don't for time reasons in the film. So in other words, there's a lot more in the book. And similarly, talking about the novelization, Rambo First Blood Part 2, there's a ton more, 2/3 more in the book than there was in the film.
Yeah, some of those scenes in the novelization for First Blood Part 2 are just fantastic. Even when you get to like the third film, the third novelization, it's just breathtaking. Especially like the whole second half, or actually both acts are very, very different, but the whole second half of that film it brings you back to the chase aspect of First Blood. You know, it brings you back to the like, are we gonna make it? Or there's that fine line of, it's so easy not to make it at this point because of everything that's going wrong and how everyone's kind of split up. And it's amazing.
And you're talking about Rambo 3.
Yeah.
The scripts on that, we're ahead of ourselves now, and as I said, the collector's hardback will come out next year for Rambo 3. But and I tell the story there that I was getting scripts every week.
Yeah.
And the scripts were vastly different from week to week. And finally, I told the producers, I said, we have to stop this because I will not be able to write the book. And so I just picked one script and then again did what I did for Rambo First Blood Part 2. I made it a novel instead of Rambo shoots this guy and Rambo shoots that guy. And the thing that I wanted to do, we'll back up. In Rambo First Blood Part 2, that is the POW camp that he escaped from. But in the movie, they merely make a side reference to it.
Yeah.
And he could have been going anywhere.
Yeah.
But in the novelization, I said, wait a minute. He's got to be feeling something. He's going back where his personal hell occurred. What's he going to do about it? And so that's some of the extras that I put in, the whole aspect that this is the camp he was held prisoner in and tortured in. And in the Rambo 3, it was so obvious that Afghanistan was Russia's Vietnam. And that Afghanistan had affected Russia's culture and weakened the country in the way that Vietnam weakened the United States. And so in the third novelization, what I wanted to do was explore that there'd be a Russian who was Rambo's counterpart, who was experiencing in Afghanistan what Rambo had experienced in Vietnam. And that these two would be pitted against one another in a way that I thought was really, really epical and exciting, and is, of course, not in the movie. It was really exciting to write about, and the book was about something. And it's so odd now, of course, because rather than learn from Russia's experience, we have become admired in Afghanistan in the same way.
Yeah.
Afghanistan's a pit for people, for nations to try to have influence.
And the other big thing I wanted to ask about was your original screenplay for Rambo 3. I know you talk about it a little bit in the novelization. Can you give us any more of what happened? Of
Sure.
The story?
It was set in, and this is in Rambo, when Rambo 3 comes out, there'll be material about this in there, but I don't mind talking about it.
Thank you.
The concept was that Rambo it was set in South America, and you have to realize in those days, in the 1980s, the Central and South America was a hotbed of American involvement to do with dictatorships and revolutionaries, and there was a very famous, nobody thinks about it anymore, in which the then the President Ronald Reagan and his presidency had provided arms to a rebellious group in, I believe it was Central America, by going the long run through the Mideast, as I recall it was through Israel. So we paid Israel to supply arms to rebels in Central America so that there wouldn't be any record of it in congressional hearings. And it was a major scandal when it was uncovered, and there were all kinds of hearings about it, and nobody thinks about it anymore. But at the time, it was pretty dramatic. And anyhow, lots of stuff was going on down there. And the idea was that Colonel Troutman would have been a military advisor to one of these groups, and that he would have been captured by the opposition, and that basically that an embassy would have been taken over. And Rambo in the United States, there's always a question of what he's going to be, and whether it was the right choice or not. He was working on tall buildings. He was the guy who worked at the very tallest part of the tallest building under construction, and that it was very, very mystical to see him up there, and that he had no fear of heights. But he found out about what had happened and immediately set out. And it would be tedious to go through the entire plot, but the idea was that it was another rescue story with Rambo. That's not exactly an original thing, but it's what the production company wanted. And for me, the most interesting thing is that Rambo would have been helped by Troutman's wife, who was a military wife and knew as much about weapons as anybody else. And that the two of them would have set out to save him. And there was a big discussion with the production company that there was no way they were going to allow this to happen, that it had to be Rambo by himself, and that nobody would believe that a woman would be able to handle weapons that way, et cetera, et cetera. How far would it come? You
could imagine like a Sigourney Weaver kind of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and what's so interesting is that not many years later, Sigourney Weaver, in fact, became the prototype for the woman warrior. in Aliens, and not the first one, but the second one. So, you know, I always thought of it as a lost opportunity. That's, you know, stuff happens. They decided that Afghanistan was hotter than Central America in terms of politics and getting attention, so they did Rambo of Arabia instead.
If you ever find pages from that, let me know, please.
I have pages of there are problems. It's so much of its time, you know, that and anyway, you know, when you do that, when you write a script, even it's from a character that I created, it's work for hire. That's the term, and the company, they're no longer in business, but regardless, Caracol Picture owns that script and the rights to it. So I could never like print it. I could never put it in a book because it isn't mine. It's a peculiarity of the way Hollywood works.
But man, it sounds fascinating. Just that angle, just that whole angle sounds fascinating. Well, I was talking to some of the guys on Slycast who are big fans of the Rambo franchise. Well, everything Sly, but they did all these amazing Rambo reviews. So I was talking with them about that, and they were fascinated. They were like, wow, if they were trying to get their heads around what that could have looked like, what that could have been like. That whole amazing stuff.
You know, there were, just as there were 26 scripts for First Blood, so, you know, for all I know, there were a lot of other scripts that were written that I wasn't told about for Rambo 2 and Rambo 3. So Hollywood is, the producers don't like anybody else to know what's going on. So there's a lot of secretiveness and compartmentalization. But it was pretty exciting. I spent 2 days with the Caracol people. I knew Mario Passar and Andrew Vineyard. I knew Andy better than I knew Mario. But we spent time together, and I was often in their offices. And I really liked the guys, and it was a very exciting time. But there were that was a critical moment. I don't care for the third movie as it turned out because it's repetitive. Rambo, Troutman is kidnapped, captured, fine. Rambo tries to rescue him and fails. Rambo tries to rescue him and succeeds. And by definition, if you look at it, it's repetitive. And that's why when I did the novelization, I invented a new third act for the story that would, have a more epic feel to it.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that the other day. I had my niece's boyfriend was over here. We were actually watching. I had a gentleman from the UK, Mr. Mike Chapman, sent me a fan edit of Rambo 3 that had all the deleted scenes in it and stuff. So we were sitting down watching that, and we were actually going over that it was kind of like a wasted opportunity. That it's like Rambo fails, Rambo succeeds, when they could have added a lot more in. Yeah. Like I was telling them about, like the scene when Rambo's coming into the camp with Musa, and Musa says, this is the only doctor for 500 miles, and you only see that character for 2 seconds, and I was telling him that it was so wasted that they took the character of Michelle out, from the novelization of Rambo 3. I think her name was Michelle, the nurse. The friend,
yeah.